Good afternoon. We're so glad you're able to join us. Today's webinar, entitled Social Security and Health Benefits for Young Adults Transition Planning, is sponsored by Mass Family Voices and the Link Center, both projects of the Federation for Children with Special Needs. Our new series, Linked Over Lunch, will be hosting shorter webinars over lunch every other month to support your access to transition-related information. This webinar will be recorded and archived at a later date on the Federation's website. A few technical pointers. Please be advised that everyone will be muted except our presenter. If you have any questions, please use the webinar toolbox that allows you to type in questions, and I will collect them for the question and answer period of this webinar, which will follow the presentation. Any questions we do not get to, I will email the answers to within the next 24 hours with handouts for the presentation. Our webinar today will be presented by Svetlana Uimenkov, staff attorney at the Disability Law Center. As part of the Disability Benefits Project at Disability Law Center, she provides technical assistance and counseling to attorneys who represent individuals in Social Security, SSI, and Medicaid appeals. And thank you to our IT Director, John Sullivan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to summarize what I'm hoping to cover today. We will discuss a little bit information on Social Security Administration, what kind of agency it is, and two programs that are administered by SSA for people who are, for adults and children who have disabilities. Let's start with the very first slide here. So Social Security is a federal agency, and most people think about this agency as the one that administers retirement benefits. However, if you have disability, whether you're an adult or a child, there are potentially two programs available. One is Social Security Insurance, another named Title II, and it comes from Title II of the Social Security Act. And another program is Supplementary Security Income, which is Title 16 of the Social Security Act. If you've ever had to deal with Social Security offices, if you plan to deal with offices, you will find this to be a sprawling bureaucracy, and it's very helpful to know at each stage what is the office and what is the specific person that you're dealing with whenever you're applying for benefits or have questions after you're already receiving benefits. So Social Security is a federal program, and that's why the structure would be the same in every state, including Massachusetts. District offices are sort of entryway into the program. This is where you file applications and appeals. District office staff will make a determination on non-disability issues. They do not process medical information. Disability Determination Service, DDS, is a state agency, and it's an agency under a contract with Social Security where lay disability examiners and sometimes doctors review evidence and make disability decisions. So to every application for SSI or SSDI, there are two pieces, the disability information and all the other information. You would have to direct all information that is not disability related to the district office, and then whenever you apply, you give permission to Social Security Administration, get in touch with medical providers, and that information, medical information, will go directly to the Disability Determination Services, DDS. Now, if things don't go well and there's an initial denial of an application, one has the ability to appeal and then probably will work his or her way up to the Office of Disability Adjudication and Review, ODAR. This office is staffed with administrative law judges. We have in Massachusetts offices in Boston, Springfield, and Lawrence. Those are employees that are separate from Social Security Administration, which allows them to review the appeals, what we call in the legal world de novo, which is essentially means they have an opportunity to look at the set of facts and make a decision that will not be connected with any other decisions made before them. They are independent. If there's a denial at the level of the administrative law judge, one has the opportunity to appeal to the Appeals Council, which is mainly paper appeal. The Appeals Council is located in Baltimore. And for all customer service issues and other issues that are not directly related to the application processing, maybe, Social Security has 10 regional offices, and we are Region 1, the smallest region in the nation in Massachusetts. very simple slide about how to apply for Social Security. If you ever visited the office, you probably got the impression that Social Security staff is directing people more and more to go online or on the phone. And in fact, for some people, that may be a very good solution. You are able to apply for SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, online. You can initiate an application, and you see here on the slide the address. And if you are not able to finish the application in one setting, you are able to come back to it. It's extremely important to know that when you're applying, you have to be able, in the end, to press print and make a copy of your application. Whenever you apply online, Social Security is supposed to mail you your filled out application so that going forward you know exactly what was filled out and when you supplied the information. Unfortunately, people who are applying for SSI, Supplementary Security benefits, I'm not able to do everything online. You can start the process online, but you will have to request additional paperwork from Social Security and then do it on paper, primarily because SSI demands some verification that is related to income, citizenship, and some other requirements that are very clumsy to put online. Social Security is telling us that they will be working for an SSI application, but right now it's not available. Finally, everybody who is receiving or paying FICA taxes or receiving benefits or planning to receive benefits can go online and set up an account which is called My Social Security account, which is extremely helpful for situations where people already receive benefits but they need verification of how much they receive, for example, for housing, for food stamps, or under some other circumstances. Once my Social Security account is set up, one can go in and see exactly how much the person is getting per month, how much perhaps the family members are getting. This is it's completely possible to fill out whatever necessary information and then print out the official looking paperwork that can be later on submitted to any other agencies if it's necessary. This really saves you a trip to the Social Security office and saves a lot of time. So SSA is a federal agency. It's subject to the Rehabilitation Act, which mandates federal agency to be accessible for any person with a disability. So if you are applying on behalf of a person with a disability, or if a person with a disability applies directly, Social Security is supposed to provide reasonable accommodation upon request. There's additional information online how to request reasonable accommodations. The most frequent one that we see is a reasonable accommodation for people who are blind or visually impaired. They have the right to receive information in Braille, in large print. They also have the right to get a phone call from Social Security every time they receive a notice from Social Security, so that they know that something has been received and they are able to ask questions about it. On this slide, you will see the forms that are necessary to start the process. As any other large agency, SSA is very process and form driven. You have to fill out specific forms almost for everything. And those are the forms that one would need if you're just applying for SSI or SSDI. You are able to get these forms online without any fees. You're able to call and ask Social Security to mail the forms, and generally people over 18 who do not have a guardian must sign the forms themselves. Now, Social Security Disability Insurance is one of the programs that SSA administers. One needs to be disabled for Social Security purposes, and we will discuss it a little bit later what it means, and insured. Insured essentially means for a person that he or she paid FICA taxes for about 10 years. If somebody has been paying into the system FICA taxes, which is taxes that are taken out for anybody who is an employee, the taxes go into a special Social Security fund, and then like with any other private insurance, let's say, if a person is disabled, he or she is able to draw the benefits out. And upon retirement at age 65, for most people later on at age 67, the person is able to get retirement benefits and before that, if the person is disabled, the person is able to get disability benefits. What's important to remember is SSDI is no needs-based program, which means a person can have any type of asset or income, any level of income, and still be eligible for SSDI. If you meet the disability standard, and if you paid FICA taxes, or if you paid so-called SECA, SICA taxes, if you're self-employed, you are eligible to receive these benefits no matter what your other income is. This year, if anybody who earns 1,260 in gross wages will get one credit, so-called credit, for purposes of Social Security insurance. One can only earn 4 credits per year. So if you made 5,000, if you paid 5,040 into the system this year, you are insured. You made everything possible to be insured for SSDI. It doesn't matter when 5,040 was generated, whether it's 1 month or multiple months. For young adults, for people who did not have an opportunity yet to have a long work history, there's a special rule to be insured for SSDI, adults under 24. They only need 6 credits in 3 years before the disability onset. The SSDI benefits amount varies from person to person because Social Security is averaging lifetime earnings when they determine so-called primary insurance amount. This number is personal to everybody because different individuals would have a different level of income over the lifetime. The maximum benefit this year is $2,639 per month. This is not average. Most people get a little bit less. People who are younger, who didn't have a chance to have high-paying jobs, would have a much an amount that is much more modest. Now, if somebody is receiving Social Security disability benefits and has children under age 18, they may or may not have disabilities. Or if somebody is retired and has children under age 18, again, with or without disabilities, that person would be able to receive so-called dependence benefits. The dependence benefits are subject to a family maximum, which means each wage earner, all of us for Social Security purposes are wage earners because we have wages and we pay taxes on these wages to Social Security fund. So each wage earner can only ultimately receive a certain amount per family, so-called family maximum. So the wage earner himself or herself will get 100% benefit, and dependents will get 50%. If you have multiple dependents, each one will get pro rata share. So it's not possible to have a higher benefit in SSDI if you have more children. Essentially, it wouldn't really matter. Now, first month of the SSDI payments. This is extremely important for people who are hesitating whether to apply or not. I would encourage to file application if there's good reason to believe that there is a medically determinable impairment and the person might be eligible. Why? Because if you're not applying for SSDI early on, you're potentially losing valuable months where you might have been eligible. Social Security will start paying benefits only 5 months after they determine that there was an onset of disability. So if an individual applies on April 1st of this year and Social Security agrees that the disability onset happened on April 1st of this year, the person will not be able to receive actual cash benefits until 5 months go by. So the longer you wait, the more money you're potentially losing. Since December 1st of 1996, most people who are receiving SSDI must have lawful presence, and I will not dwell on immigration eligibility requirements here. If you have questions about it, please email us, and we'll react, on a case-by-case basis. Children who are disabled, they are able to receive SSDI benefits in different ways. First of all, adult children who are working even part-time may qualify for SSDI on their own wage record if they paid some FICA taxes. If they never worked or they didn't work enough, didn't pay enough FICA taxes, they may be able to receive SSDI benefits on the record of their parent. However, the parent has to be either retired or disabled or the parent has to die. So that would be the survivor's benefits. To remember basically when one could receive SSDI, you just have to remember the rule. SSDI is available to people who pay taxes or who are connected to the family members who also pay taxes into the system. Children under 18 without disabilities may get benefits as dependents, but those benefits will cease when they turn age 18. Children who have disabilities may continue receiving benefits even after they turn 18 if the onset of disability happened before the age of 22. So long-term severe disabilities most likely will meet the standard, and for those children, if their parents are either disabled or retired or deceased, they are able to receive benefits as disabled adult children. This particular title doesn't make a lot of sense because you're adult and a child, but basically the idea here is that the child is drawing benefits on the record of a parent. Medicare is available to people who have been receiving cash benefits for 25 months. So in other words, if you apply and you're eligible to receive benefits, you have to wait for almost 2 years, more than 2 years, before Medicare eligibility kicks in. And when one becomes eligible, you would just get Medicare card, and for better or worse, Medicare will be your primary insurance. If there's any other insurance, let's say MassHealth will become secondary insurance. If somebody has private insurance will be primary insurance, Medicare will be secondary, and sometimes you also have MassHealth. Again, I would like to remind people that it's extremely important to apply early if possible, because you will get payments earlier and potentially you will become eligible for Medicare earlier. People who have certain renal stage disease do not have to wait for 24 months. If you have questions about Medicare, you see the slide with contact information for counselors who are well versed in the rules on Medicare and are able to direct people or help them, assist them with appeals and applications. Now, the second program that is available to people who might be disabled is Supplementary Security Income. The basic difference is that the program is available to those who never worked or who didn't work enough, or who worked in the beginning and then had a huge gap before the disability onset. This program is financed not through the special fund like SSDI where FICA goes, but through general revenue, general tax revenue. It is available to people who are either blind, disabled, or to individuals who are 65 and over. Blindness for Social Security purposes means a vision of 200/20 of 200 in the better eye with correction. If somebody has a visual impairment, it's always advantageous to apply and try and determine whether somebody can get benefits as a blind individual versus just disabled individual. The benefit is usually higher and there are some other advantages. However, if you do not meet the strict standard, you can still receive benefits as a disabled individual. You have to be a resident of the United States. You have to be a resident of any particular state. You can't be abroad and receive SSI. Social Security comes with MassHealth automatically. If you qualify for SSI, most people qualify for MassHealth Standard. SSI is a program that is financed by the federal government, and the federal government sets the maximum rate each year. No matter what the expenses of the family, unfortunately the rate is set for everybody equally. The federal benefit rate in 2016 is $733, and if it's a couple, which means people who both receive SSI, that would be $1,100. A lot of individuals receive even less, and as we go along you will understand hopefully why, because Social Security subtracts cash for certain income. So if you have any other income, you will receive less than $733. Whenever they determine payments, Social Security has to decide whether the payment goes to an individual, a couple, or a child. So couple would get, as I just mentioned, a little bit more. Individual will get maximum $733. Child is somebody under 18. If a child is at school, the SSI benefits may continue until the age of 22. So that's important in transition planning to realize that benefits are available if the child stays in school and has an IEP, for example. Social Security frequently forgets this idea and they're trying to cut people off at age 18. So it's important to let them know that, number one, this is still a student and the student has an IEP. Supplementary security income is available the very first month after the months of application. So my advice to apply early stands here as well, because if you're not applying early, if you're just trying to collect medical information, thinking about it, you potentially may be wasting valuable time. Now, for children who are under 18, SSI is only available if they are disabled. Remember I mentioned in the beginning, SSDI may be available to somebody who is under 18 and not disabled as a dependent if the parent is disabled or retired. For SSI purposes, it doesn't matter what's going on with the parent necessarily. Social Security is looking at the child and it has to determine whether the child meets the disability standard that Social Security has. Unfortunately, there are strict resource limits for Social Security, $2,000 for an individual and $3,000 for a couple. So anything that can be a resource, cash, deposits in the bank, savings of any sort, these amounts cannot go higher than $2,000 for an individual and $3,000. Unfortunately, for children under 18, parental income counts and parental resources count. And that's why a lot of people, a lot of families, middle-income families, even if they have children who have disabilities, may not necessarily apply for SSI because of the resources. Once the child turns 18, the child may apply independently, and then the parental resources and income doesn't count. Let's see. A lot of the information on income and resources will be elaborated on in another seminar that will be held shortly after this one, and that's why I'm not here talking in great detail about SSI income resources. You just have to remember that if you applied for SSI, you have to show that your income is limited, you have to show that you have resources either $2,000 or $3,000, and you have to think of anything that comes into the family or into the individual twice. The very first time it's income in the month of receipt. If this is not spent, this will be a resource in all subsequent months. Income is anything that you receive in cash or in kind that may go for food and shelter, essentially. And Social Security really very careful about counting and evaluating everything. You can have earned income from employment. You can have unearned income. For example, somebody who doesn't have a high amount in SSDI benefits can be eligible for SSDI and SSI at the same time. SSDI would be considered unearned income. Again, all of the income from a parent for a child under 18 and income from a spouse will be counted. Not the entire income of the spouse, but partially, some of it. In-kind income, anything that somebody receives that could go for shelter or food will be counted as an in-kind income. You have to remember that earned income is favored by Social Security, and by this I mean that whenever somebody receives earned income, Social Security doesn't count the entire amount. The easy formula to remember would be to remember that Social Security counts approximately half of somebody's wages to determine the SSI benefit amount. So if somebody is eligible to $500 per month in SSI and receives $500 wages, Social Security approximately will only count $250 in wages, and that means that somebody will be getting $250 as wages and then $250 in SSI. Unearned income decreases the SSI benefit dollar for dollar. And I'm skipping a lot of slides that is all about people who work and applying for SSI. And I'm going straight right now to essentially disability determination and disability standard. It's different for adults and for children. For children under 18, one has to show that there's a medically determinable mental or physical impairment, which results in marked and severe functional limitations, which lasted or is expected to last at least 12 months or result in death. It sounds very morbid, but essentially what Social Security is doing, it kind of unpacks this definition and goes through several steps. The first question they ask is whether the child is performing any substantial gainful activity. In other words, are there any wages? For most situations, no. They proceed to the next step to figure out if there's a severe impairment. To show that there's a severe impairment, you absolutely have to have a diagnosis from a medical professional. And it would have to be psychologist, psychiatrist. It cannot be a nurse. It cannot be a social worker. It has to be a licensed medical professional. Does the child's impairment meet or equal the severity of a listed impairment? What is a listed impairment? Social Security has a sort of so-called book of listings. They divided the whole body into 14 categories of body systems, and then within each body system they have a set number of impairments, and they go through symptoms and signs and tests that one would see in the medical record to match and understand whether the impairment is very severe. So if somebody has, let's say, congenital heart disease, they will compare tests that they see in the medical records with the list that they have to understand whether the congenital heart disease progressed to the point where it's very clear to them that the person is disabled. So for children, it is the same way. Essentially, they're trying to determine is there medically determinable impairment, and whether, if it exists, they try to decide whether this child is able to perform functions to the same degree or to a lesser degree as compared to the child who would not have a disability. Now, Social Security must review children's cases every 3 years to see whether there's a medical improvement. Disabilities in children is very dynamic. Sometimes it gets worse, sometimes it gets better, and they have to review. That's why they have to review it at least every 3 years. Unfortunately, or for better or worse, when child reaches age 18, Social Security must review the disability under an adult standard. And that's why a lot of children who do receive SSI receive a lot of paperwork at 17 and a half years of age. They go through the process and sometimes they get denied. Why? Because the standard now is slightly different. And the standard here, as you can see, anybody will be disabled for Social Security purposes if he or she can show an inability to engage in any substantial gainful activity by reason of medically determinable physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months. As you can see, there are lots of similar elements that we saw in the childhood definition, but the adult disability process goes through 5 steps. And the first step, again, is this person engaged in substantial gainful activity? This year, Social Security assumes that anybody who is making $1,130 gross per month is able to work, and there is an indicator that this person is not disabled for SSA purposes. So if somebody is working and this person is in a wheelchair and blind, Social Security will not be arguing about the disabilities, but they will be saying, well, this person is engaging in SGA, so we will be denying this application at step 5 and won't even go any further. Now, if there is no SGA at step 5, we go to step 2, which is very similar to the childhood disability standard. Again, is there a severe impairment? Is there a medically determinable diagnosis that gives an indicator to us that this is not a short-term impairment, but something relatively long-term? Step 3, again, they go through medical records and they try to match symptoms and signs to specific impairments, to specific diseases, and see whether the impairment is so obviously severe and develops to a point where a person is functionally impaired that they don't have to talk about anything else. In other words, just looking at the paperwork, it's possible to say that the person is disabled. If it's not possible, they have to go to step 4 and they have to evaluate this person on an individualized basis. They have to look at the age of this person, education, past relevant work if there was any work, and decide, okay, considering the functional limitations that this person has, is he or she able to go back to what they did before? And if that's not possible, again, they go to step 5, and this is where a lot of applications get denied. Even if they can't go back to the past relevant work, Social Security must determine, can they do something else in the national economy that a person of the same age, education, work experience, and with the same impairments would be able to perform. This is a very strange step 5 test. Essentially, Social Security is not looking at the availability of jobs in real terms in Massachusetts or even nationally. They go to the Department of Labor and they look at the so-called Dictionary of Occupational Titles, DOT, that lists all the jobs that are available in the national economy. And if they can find a job that they think this person is able to perform, the application will be denied. So let's say a teacher with 15 years of experience and with a number of impairments, physical and mental, can prove at step 4 that he's not able to go back as a teacher to school, let's say. But if Social Security is able to show that considering all the physical and mental impairments, this person can do unskilled sedentary work without a lot of interaction with people, they will deny this application. So they will say, if you can be a parking lot attendant, even considering all your disabilities, we will deny the application. And that's why you frequently see people who are eligible for long-term disability or short-term disability or workers' compensation, but they're not eligible for SSI. So those are different standards, and you can't automatically assume if you have a particular diagnosis that you will be eligible for SSDI. However, having said that, I would still encourage people to apply, gather as much information as possible, and appeal. Because you really, since the process is very individualized, you really never know whether you are specifically or your child is or is not disabled under the adult standard. Now, what we see when children get reviewed at age 18, a lot of applications get denied because of miscommunications. For example, not all of the medical information is in, not all of the useful information that may come from school, from social workers, from something else is in, and that's why under the adult standard, the children get denied. There's a special Social Security ruling, 11.2p, that is extremely helpful. This is a specific rule and list of recommendations for Social Security staff that they all must follow that explains what kind of information they have to look for when they review whether somebody from age 18 to 25 is disabled. Continuing disability reviews is something that happens, unfortunately, for absolutely everybody who is receiving SSI or SSDI. For children, again, as I said, it's every 3 years. Even for adults, it may be every 3 years if Social Security determines that an adult's medical condition is likely to improve. If the medical condition is not likely to improve, the review happens every 7 years. For SSI purposes, Social Security must conduct a review that has nothing to do with disability. They have to, in addition, to look every month or every other month if there's something is changing of whether the person is still eligible based on income. So they have to look at the resources, wages, unearned income, any other circumstances that might have changed. If somebody is not eligible for SSI for less than 12 months, the SSI benefits will be considered in suspension. So if circumstances changed, the person can inform Social Security about it and be back in pay status without reapplying, without filing a new application. If the suspense status went for more than 12 months, unfortunately, one has to file a new application. And I already mentioned in the beginning that if there's a denial, one can appeal. You always have to file appeal within 60 days from the time that you received the notice. And you have to go through reconsideration request, then ALJ, Appeals Council, and maybe ultimately to the federal court. It's not possible to appeal Social Security denials directly to federal court without first going through all the administrative remedies, administrative appeals that Social Security has. For children and adults who for some reason are not able to administer their financial affairs, Social Security is able to appoint a representative payee. For most children under 18, their parents are representative payees. However, once the child is turned 18, there's a presumption that this person is able to manage benefits. So sometimes Social Security will start paying SSDI or SSI directly to the individual. If for some reason this is not an ideal situation, it's possible to apply for Social Security and request that a payee be appointed. SSI, Social Security will appoint a payee to an adult beneficiary if they think that for whatever reason, whether it's mental or physical impairment, the person is not able to administer benefits. Again, this is only about benefits. This is not like a conservator. This is not like a guardian. It's a much more limited authority. Representative payee has only one authority: how to administer SSDI or SSI that the person receives. And SSDI and SSI benefits must be spent for the benefit of a beneficiary, which in Social Security world means first and foremost for food, shelter, medical expenses, medical basic expenses. Every payee is supposed to account for the benefits at least once a year. Sometimes it may be more frequently. If things change and a particular person does not want to be a payee anymore, or the person is not the best one for representative payment, it's possible to again petition Social Security, submit a special form, and request that another person be appointed, and sometimes even an organization may be appointed for payees. In my experience, organizational payees are slightly more difficult than individual payees because they manage several accounts on behalf of multiple beneficiaries, and sometimes they're not as easy to reach as obviously family members or close friends. And here you will see order of representative payees. Whenever somebody petitions for a payee, Social Security has a laundry list. They start with a spouse, legal guardian, somebody who's very close to the person. If nobody's available in the family, they go to friends. And finally, if nobody is available among close friends, among people who know the person very well, they will go to public or nonprofit agency or institution. For children, as I said before, payees are mostly parents, although not necessarily. Sometimes it could be a parent who has custody or who doesn't have custody. It could be an institutional payee. I will skip responsibilities and the improper use of benefits by summarizing that, of course, you have to use the representative, as a representative payee, you have to use the money for food, shelter, and basic necessities. You cannot misspend it on other children. You cannot misspend it for any other purposes. You have to account for Social Security for the use of benefits. And if there's a problem, Social Security may actually decide that there was an overpayment and seek repayment directly from the payee or beneficiary or both. And finally, I could see that we're coming relatively close. So this is just for your information. You will receive these materials later, and you have MassHealth contacts, how to troubleshoot problems if you have problems with MassHealth, how to troubleshoot programs if you have problems with state supplement program in Massachusetts. This is a program that is available automatically to anybody who's receiving SSI. Several years ago, one would get only one check. Unfortunately now, people who are eligible for SSI, they get one check from the federal government, which is federal benefit rate, and then they get another one from the state, which is SSP. So if you have a problem with SSP, you have to call the number here, and you have to report all the events twice to Social Security and to SSP. And finally, this is information about people who are receiving SSI and planning to work or working, and they need some advice. There are good subcontractors that work for Social Security, Project Impact and Benny Plan, and they will present a separate seminar later on what they do and how they can help you. So now I'm open up for questions.
Okay, the first question we have is, if DDS has determined that the adult is disabled, will that mean SSA will determine the same?
Absolutely not. DDS is a state agency that operates under state rules and applies state rules when they determine if the person meets the disability definition, and is able to receive services from them. They don't really have anything to do with Social Security. Social Security is a federal agency. It operates and subject to Social Security Act that has an absolutely different definition of disability, which is covered. So it's possible that if somebody is applying for DDS, is eligible for DDS services, and has impairments severe enough that will also meet the definition of disability under Social Security Act. But it doesn't necessarily, one doesn't necessarily mean the other. One may be eligible for DDS services and not for SSDI or SSI, and vice versa.
Are there any other questions? Please post them in the box.
And while we're waiting for questions, I can address some that we got before, just to make sure that people received answers. There's one question where the person is asking, how do I find out if my child is eligible for Social Security benefits? By applying. You have to file an application online, on the phone, if there is a medically determinable impairment, if doctors made a diagnosis, if the child has treatment, ongoing treatment, and if the impairment lasted long enough, more than 12 months, it's possible that this child or this young adult is disabled for SSI purposes. So I encourage you to apply. There's no penalty for applying. Collect medical information and see what the decision will be. Another question. My son is 23, has a part-time job. Should I apply for benefits for him that can possibly help pay for the cost of his medication? Well, first of all, since the person is 23, he's an adult, so this young man can apply on his own behalf. And in fact, if he doesn't have a guardian, he has to apply on his own behalf, and he has to sign an application. If this person is working and long enough, he may be eligible for SSDI. If he hasn't been working long enough, he may be eligible for SSI. And once he applies, Social Security will go through the same 5-step process. If he is eligible and if he starts receiving benefits, let's say if it's SSDI, it is really none of Social Security business how he spends his SSDI. If he's receiving SSI, they will be interested how he spends it, because the idea behind SSI program is to provide absolute minimum threshold financial so that people can meet basic needs, shelter and food. So if the son ultimately is able to receive SSI, Social Security will be saying, okay, are you spending it on your food, shelter, medication, transportation? If it's SSDI, they are not really interested and they're not seeking information on how you're spending your benefits. Another question. My question is about timing to apply for benefits. Can application be delayed if the young adult is capable of continuing schooling or being employed? And if a delay is possible, is there a mandatory age by which one must apply for benefits? And finally, can someone file, suspend, and refile if needed? So I'll start with the last question. It's a no. You cannot file and suspend. You can do all of these things with retirement benefits, and it's a whole other subject matter for another seminar. But this is disability benefits. You can only apply once, and they determine you if you're disabled, they will start payment. If payments stop, it's possible to apply again if situation changes, whether it's disability or financial situation if it's SSI. So one can file multiple SSI or SSDI application over the lifetime, and SSDI will stop at age 65 or at age 67 at full retirement age. People who are disabled and reach full retirement age 65 or 67, Social Security converts SSDI benefits automatically to retirement benefits. At the end of the day, they will never get less money than they would have gotten on SSDI, and people who at age 65 or 67 get retirement are in a slightly better position because they don't have to worry about wages and how wages affect their SSDI or SSI. Does it make sense to delay? Absolutely not. It doesn't make sense to delay. Please apply. If somebody is either at school, university, this is not work. And Social Security will evaluate the capacity of this person to maintain a course schedule, but it is it will not automatically mean that the person who attends university or college is able to maintain full-time work, 40 hours per week, 5 days, with normal breaks, without reasonable accommodation. So if somebody is able to attend college, it does not automatically mean that this person can do a full-time job, which means this person can potentially be eligible for SSDI or SSI. There's no reason to wait. And as far as being employed, well, if somebody's employed, and as I said before, making more than 1,130, unfortunately this application will be denied at step 1. However, interesting thing with SSI, once you are on SSI, once you are eligible and you're receiving your benefits, you can actually make more than 1,130, because remember, Social Security counts approximately half of your wages. So what will happen, you will be on SSI, you will be just getting less. And all this information, interesting information, will be given to you in another seminar by benefit planners.
Okay, we have some more questions. The next one is, if my child is over 18 and permanently disabled, will he qualify for SSI even though he lives with me and I claim him as my dependent on my tax return? Does he apply as an independent?
No, there's no concept of dependent for Social Security purposes. So this young man, if he's 18 and disability started before the age of 22, can potentially be eligible for SSDI, either on his own record, if he had an opportunity to work at least part-time and paid enough FICA. If the caller is retired or disabled, this young man may be eligible for SSDI based on her record. And if none of this is available, he may be eligible for SSI individually. He's over 18, which means parental income does not count any longer. So Social Security will determine independently as first step, is he eligible? And once he's eligible, they will try to determine how much they can pay. And now, if they think that because he lives with parents, he has so-called in-kind income, in other words, some of his housing expenses are taken care of, Social Security may reduce the SSI benefit that he gets. But the bottom line here is that he should apply, and if they determine him to be disabled, they will be able to pay at least some amount, and more importantly, he will be eligible, if he's not eligible now, for SSI, for MassHealth.
Okay, another question. It's around eligibility. He met the impairment, but he received child support that goes directly into a trust. We also went to court, and the judge ruled that SSI should not count the child support as income, but every time SSI counts the child support. I have applied twice and been denied twice. He is 20 and no longer in school and not working, and the child support is $1,400 a month.
Okay, so I will rephrase this caller's question. This is a situation of a young man whose medical impairment meets the standard of Social Security, but Social Security Administration denied SSI because they think he has too much unearned income in the form of child support. For children who are under 18, Social Security does not count 1/3 of child support. For children who are over 18, unfortunately, the entire amount counts. So if he's getting, I forgot, I think it was $1,400 per month, this will be considered unearned income, and this will reduce potential full SSI amount dollar for dollar. I mentioned before that the federal benefit rate maximum is $733, so you can see why Social Security may not be able to pay anything to this young man, even though he meets the disability standard. And again, judges and courts, whenever the proceedings happen in family law, they don't really have much to do with Social Security. Social Security will, at the end of the day, only be interested in one thing. How much does the judge decide to assign as child support? How much this person receiving child support per month? Is this person under 18 or over 18? And if it's over 18, 100% of child support will be counted against potential SSI.
So she's asking about the judge ruled that SSI should not count the child support as income. What about his ruling?
The judge has no power to do that, unfortunately. This is a regulation, and this is a law that has been passed by Congress. And, I would be happy to look at the decision and see what the judge thought, but ultimately you have to go to Congress, change that rule, and then perhaps child support will not be counted.
Okay. And our last question is, are there ever circumstances where a person who's 21 who hasn't been working for 10 years but continues to be in a well-supported school or vocational program can receive SSDI?
Again, this person can receive SSDI on a wage record of his parent, or one or the other, mother or father, if the parent is retired, disabled, or deceased. Why? Because this person hasn't had a chance yet to work and pay FICA taxes, so he doesn't have his own wage record. But even part-time employment will eventually lead him to have enough FICA credits, and he may be eligible for his own SSDI on his own record if he works in supported employment, provided this is not below minimum wage. Otherwise, if there's no employment, the only way to qualify would be through parents.
Okay. Thank you, Svetlana. This was really good. We will be emailing the PowerPoint and many handouts for the presentation to you this afternoon, along with an evaluation form that you can please fill out and return to us. Stay tuned for June 16th at noon. We will also have another webinar on Social Security benefits and employments for students in transition from school to adult life. A benefits counselor from Mass Rehab Commission will be talking about what happens to Social Security disability when a young person goes to work and how to maximize a young person's options when she goes to work. Thank you very much.